This is a copy of the results of my Keirsey test and an example of how to analyze it. Okay, so what this says is the beginning of the report is that guardians, which is what I am, are the cornerstone of society, for they are the temperament given to serving and preserving our most important social institutions. So I agree with that. I'm a teacher, so I am involved in providing a service. Guardians have a natural talent in managing goods and services, from supervision to maintenance and supply, and they all use their skills to keep things running smoothly in their families, communities, schools, churches, hospitals, and businesses. And again, I agree with that. I'm a teacher, so there's not much to critique here. Okay, so the next paragraph says that guardians can have a lot of fun with their friends, but they're quite serious about their duties and responsibilities. So I agree with that. I'm a guardian and I can have a lot of fun with my friends. I enjoy having fun, such as joking around, going to movies, watching television, especially Netflix, because then I get to choose. And I usually give a few parties during the year. I'd give more if I had time. So I agree with that. It also says that they are quite serious about their duties and responsibilities and take pride in being dependable and trustworthy. And again, I agree with that. That's part of teaching, giving service to students and working as hard as I can to provide information and instructions that are clear and reliable. And that fits there. I do work hard. I devote many hours to course design, learning more about how people learn, so I can integrate that into my courses, and for my other job, helping faculty to work on improving teaching and learning too. So I also agree with that. It goes on to say that guardians believe in law and order and sometimes worry that respect for authority, even a fundamental sense of right and wrong, is being lost. That part I don't agree with so much. Um, I don't so much agree about worrying about respect for authority per se. And although I do believe that we should follow laws and regulations, I am a lawyer after all, and I love teaching and studying law. Where I disagree is that what I see is authorities who have allowed bias and money to interfere with their role, and that role is protecting people as individuals. I do honor customs, but I think they're referring here more to what people call the good old days. And I have a different perspective. So I believe the results are wrong or incomplete here. The good old days, to my mind, was the move government made, starting with FDR, to move toward a U.S. society that values all individuals, regardless of the amount of money they have and regardless of the color of their skin. So I believe the results are wrong also in the sense that there are a variety of customs that need to be honored from across the world and not just the U.S. customs and traditions. So I know that they talk about guardians honoring custom and tradition strongly. If they're focusing on this from a world perspective, then I would agree with it. But if it's not a world perspective, then I don't agree. Again, the first sentence I've addressed in my response to the last section. The guardians are practical and believe in following the rules and cooperating with others, so I kind of addressed that already. It says they're not very comfortable winging it, and sometimes I'm not, and sometimes I am, but this whole blazing new trails and not being comfortable with that, that's completely wrong. At least when it comes to technology, I'm always trying new things. Faculty and students who know me know that I'm often the first adopter for a great deal of new technologies. And then I do agree with the statements about loyalty and discipline and teamwork in order to get a job done right. I do agree with that. I do like to stick to a schedule, and I do like to follow proper procedures. But again, this part about being cautious of change, I don't think that's completely accurate. It says they are cautious about change even though they know that change can be healthy for an institution. Better to go slowly, they say, and look before you leap, and I seem to be the opposite of that. Sometimes I jump in and I say, oops, maybe I shouldn't have jumped. So, part of this is true, but part of it definitely is not. And then, do I agree about all the indispensable but thankless jobs? Only in part. Teaching and promoting learning are indispensable. And are they somewhat thankless in that teachers often do not see the fruits of their labor? I'd say that probably is somewhat, although many students also, make statements to show they appreciate what teachers do. But often it's rare that a student will let me know what they've learned in the class truly helped them in the long term. So I guess that part fits the thankless part. And then on this last section, I do agree about following a familiar routine. For some reason, I get up every morning between 5 and 5:30. It doesn't matter whether it's weekday, weekend, and then I do some of the same things every morning. Where I disagree, though, is I occasionally like to change my routine. As my friends know, when I can, I'll call them on the spur of the moment and ask if they want to go with me on a trip or even to a movie or do something. And then the last part about caring about colleagues, because you genuinely care about the people you work with, your colleagues and your customers, appreciate your unassuming kindness. I absolutely do care about my colleagues and my students. I know that's sometimes hard for students to believe when I have to make tough decisions about grades, about the impact of failure to complete work and other necessary but not popular tasks. But I really do care. I consider myself an empathetic person, but I'm also somewhat rules driven or policies driven, that this is the point and this is what you're supposed to do, and if you don't do it, then you can't get the benefit of it. Anyway, that's an example of how you can critique the results. You don't need to do as much as I did because I've done about maybe 6 or 7 minutes, but I want to give you an example. In my example, you can see how I tied it to my life in general, but at the same time also tied it to my work as a teacher. And that's what I want you to do, to tie it to especially how you will work in your group.